Hello. I am about to do my last batch of candles for the season, I think, and I had people ask again how I do it. So, we're gonna do that. So, I make candles as a hobby. I love candles and I love giving them as gifts, especially for Christmas. And it is kind of expensive to make your own hand-poured soy candles or beeswax candles for that matter. And so I do it for Christmas as gifts. I make probably about at least 50 a year for Christmas. The biggest things and the things that are gonna cost the most are having a high quality wick and a high quality wax. So I'm gonna show you the wax that I get. Right now it is like $55 for 10 pounds. 10 pounds honestly is not a lot, and I go through it fairly quickly. It all depends on your vessels. High quality soy candle wax. I would love to try coconut wax, but that's even more expensive. And then, it's a 10-pound parcel, so shipping is always going to cost something. So this is what my wax looks like. It comes in these kind of shaving chips. And so what I do is I scoop it out and I measure it. And then right here I have just like a 2-pound wax pot. And so I am currently melting it. I will continue filling this up. I know that this holds 2 pounds, which is 34 ounces, and so I kind of go off of that because I know it at this point. But if I was doing this more professionally, or if you're starting out, you really need to measure everything, and I still should be measuring, but this is a hobby, not a profession. So while my wax is melting and heating up, each wax has its own melting point, its own like flash point. So basically you just need to know your wax and get a high quality wax. I know that my wax needs to be heated up to like 186 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's gonna have the best binding for the fragrance oils that I use. I used to always use tins, and these are like 8-ounce tins. They were kind of discontinued in the colors that I really liked, so I am experimenting with this hexagon jar. I don't love it. I don't know if you can see, there is kind of a hump going on. It's not a smooth surface bottom, and so when it comes to adhering the wicks, it's a little trickier. And then when it comes to the warning labels, that also, it just doesn't look nice and smooth like this. What I'm using to get the wicks attached, I said I'm struggling to do it, this new vessel. I'm using glue dots. These are like permanent glue dots, and I'm using 2 per wick, which is not my preference. A lot of candle wick stickers actually look very different. It's just like a foam double-sided tape situation instead of like glue dot. So what I'm doing, because this is so hard to adhere, is I am putting glue dot on each half, so then it can stick to the not concaved surface, but whatever the opposite of that is. And then you want to make sure you center it, poke it down, and then I'm just using whatever to make sure it is all stuck down. So I gotta do a couple more of these. So in terms of oils and how you scent your candles, fragrance oils are the best way to go. They are formulated for it. Essential oils, often you have to use more, and you're a little more limited in scents. So also having like a high quality fragrance oil is important. And I mean, that's the whole thing with why making candles is so expensive. There's a better example. But making candles is expensive because you want them to be high quality. You want them to be safe for your health, for your family's health, your pets' health. And so it's important to have lead-free wicks, high-quality wicks, high-quality wax, good fragrance oils. You can see that one's kind of pulling up a little. Stick it down. There we go. Fragrance oils are formulated specifically for things like perfumes and candles, soaps, stuff like that. Often your percentage of fragrance oil to wax, I normally see like 3 to 6%, meaning if you have like 16 ounces of wax, then you're gonna have 3% of that volume you'll have of your fragrance oil. Again, if you are doing this for the first time or trying to do it professionally, you need to calculate and measure that out. I've kind of already done calculations, so I kind of know what I like in terms of that measurement, and it also depends on what fragrance oil you use. Some fragrance oils are going to be more potent than others, especially like warm scents, vanilla scents. That's going to be very strong often compared to like a tea scent or something. That's something to play around with. Again, if I was doing this professionally, I would be more specific about my measurements, and I also would do a lot more testing than I do. These new vessels, I haven't done a ton of testing with them, but I've still been gifting them. I've just been saying like, hey, this is a new candle vessel, and there's a chance that the wick at the very end might kind of get unstuck and just kind of float around. It's fine. Wouldn't worry much about it. So whatever materials I can, I will link below. I've tried some wicks off Amazon, but I get most of my supplies through a wholesaler, but things I can't link I will, like a thermometer, digital scale. I like this one because it's rechargeable instead of having to buy batteries. I really like that. I use old detergent cups to measure out my fragrance oils. I just find that it's a pretty good size for it, and then it has that like lip, so it just keeps it a little tidier. I also, instead of getting fancy wick trimmers, I use an extra pair of nail clippers, because you can still kind of go in, and this is something to do with all your candles, is you trim the wicks every time you burn them, and that can help with an even burn, can help with not getting like soot balls, and it just kind of keeps them in better condition. But you don't need to go buy something fancy, just get an old pair of nail clippers. So I'm going to measure out my fragrance oils now. I know that I like to have about an ounce of fragrance oil per pound. That's just kind of what I have found. And for this scent that I'm making, I call it sugared winter berries. I know what amounts I need for each fragrance oil. So I just have about half an ounce of this one, which is kind of the main scent, and then I add like a little bit of vanilla. It's almost kind of a yogurty smell, I feel like. And even though I know like the amounts, I still always smell it as I go. And I'll like smell my main formulation here and whatever I'm adding, and I'll just do a lot of sniffing. Just want the teeniest little dash of this, because this one's very strong. Just want the teeniest dash of that. I'll also smell my past batch of this scent, just to make sure it's still smelling right. And it is. Alright, so now let's check where this wax is at. I just use a double boiler. There's other ways to do it. I just find this is easiest for just doing it at home in the kitchen. Alright, so we still got a bit to go. So, unfortunately, I was not able to get the amount of fragrance oil because I was using the rest of the bottle for something. So what I'm going to do is pour some wax that I'm heating up into this jar, just an old jar, and do a different scent. So then I'll just go with like a third of the amount in the pot, mix it up, and then later I will heat up the wax in here to 186 and mix up that, you know, just do it. Check the temp again. You can probably hear it bubbling. We're climbing to 180, but not there yet. So these little popsicle sticks, this is just the cheapest way of doing it. I do also have these, but I honestly like the popsicle stick more. But what it's for is when you pour the wax, you then want your wick to settle centered. So you just pop it through. Then as the wax hardens and cools, your wick stays nice and in the middle. Officially at 187. Turn off my burner. Tap, tap, tap. I'm going to carefully take it off. So I measured the wax before I measured my fragrance oil, and that was a mistake. So now I'm going to pour a bunch in there to deal with later. Oh no, I dripped on the counter. It's going to be okay. So now I pour in my fragrance oil. So at this point, the oil is in there. And as I stir, you can kind of see how it has to combine with the wax. So I'm going to sit here and stir this for a good minute and then wait. Okay, so I've got one scent mixed up here, another in this little jar. So what I'm going to do now is just get I'm just going to get all these jars just set up here nicely for pouring, and then I just wait until it's around 130 degrees, and that is when I pour, because you don't want to pour too hot, otherwise it's going to completely like dislodge your wicks. Okay, so this is random, but this is the trimmed wick. I actually take these and I use them kind of as like a lighter, so when I light a candle, I'll light like one wick, and then I will use this extra wick and light this, and then I'll go around and light other candles. It just lasts longer than a match, and then I get to use them. So I've got two things cooling here. I've got this set up to pour, and I have to wait till it's like 130 degrees, which honestly takes quite a while. This is very hot and has to come down about 50 plus degrees. Okay, so I just came, and this is like almost cloudy, so I actually have to heat this up just a teeny bit before I can pour. Well, let's see how well it pours. I poured one already. Yeah, I gotta heat this up before I can pour the next. I waited too long, but that's because this is in a smaller jar than I'm normally using. So let's heat that up real fast. And then I'll temp my big pot, which should be fine as well at this point. So this is like 110, so that's great. Normally I pour around 130, but it doesn't really matter as long as you don't wait too long, which I did already. So then I'm just gonna pour it, try not to spill, and then I'm going to make sure the wicks are centered, and then they just have to sit for like 24 hours without being disturbed. And then I'm just going to kind of heat up that little jar and finish pouring that. Okay, so now they're poured, and I just kind of straighten out the wick and then center it. So same thing, straighten out the wick, center it, straighten out the wick, center it, straighten out the wick, center it, and then this I need to re-pour. Okay, so because of that whole little situation, I now have one candle that's a little low, so that will be either kept by me or given to someone who is understanding of that. But now I just let the candles sit for like 12 hours without touching them, and then probably tomorrow morning I will just like move them because they're in the way. So this is what they're looking like right now. As you can see, I kind of got those centered. They're just gonna sit here on the counter overnight. All right, it is the next day, and I am coming out to check on the candles, trim the wicks, and then screw lids on. So let's see what we're working with. And so here we go. That one's got a little imperfection. If I was doing this professionally, I'd take a heat gun to it, or even just a blow dryer. This is the one that just kind of is a little small because of my oopsie. But the rest of them are looking pretty good. So now what I do is I'm going to trim the wicks, put the lids on, and then clean up whatever kind of spilled on the side. So let me show you trimming the wicks. So simple. Like I said, I don't use specific wick trimmers. I just have this dedicated pair of old nail clippers that we do not use, and boom. And there you go. So I think I'll actually probably clean up them later because I just have a lot to do. Those are the lids. Later I also will be label making. I use Canva and then Avery labels. I use Canva for a lot of things, so I'm pretty proficient at it. These still need longer to cure, but now I can handle them. So when I would do the tins, which I think I kind of want to get back to, I'm not loving these jars. But anyways, warning label on the bottom, label on the top, and I design my own labels. And so these get a label on the side, even though I love how it looks with the label on the top. And it's kind of easier to repurpose the jars, which I hope people do when I gift them these. And that takes us to that. So that is a batch of 6 candles. That's kind of generally what I do batches of. If I don't have a lot of time, if I have more time, I'll do like a dozen a night. So it's been a few days. I am actually now going to wrap up some of the candles to gift. and I wanted to just kind of end the video. And obviously I'm just a hobbyist with this. Again, if I wanted to be more professional or do this as a business, I would run things very differently and be much more careful and precise and consistent, but it's just for fun right now. Anyways, that is how I make candles for fun. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I should be able to get back to you. I will link what I can, and I think that's all I have. And I hope this was helpful and shows that candle making is not super intimidating, but it's important to have high quality ingredients, which will overall increase the price.